Alright, this is a video for testing of a customer's harness. This one is, name is Honza. He's got a SC430 going into a Mazda MX-5. So we've built him completely brand new harness. So it actually brings all the ECU and everything inside the car. So you see it comes out the rear there. Alright, so Honza, as per your pictures that you did send us, what we decided to do is this T-piece boot is going this way because obviously your firewall grommet is sort of right here and it's sort of directly behind the fuel rail. So that should sort of sit like that, and then that'll go directly into your firewall there. So that's just a quick change that we made from there. Obviously everything is labeled, so you can see all your grounds are labeled, all of your individual sort of coils, injectors, VVR cam sensor, etc. So obviously everything is labeled, so obviously it'll fit on quite nicely and hopefully you won't have any issues putting it on. But so we've got everything across here, oil control valve, coolant temp. We've also included a single wire labeled as temp. Alright, so we've left this loose so that you can attach whatever coolant temp sensor you want on here. Okay, so you'll see underneath your coolant temp sensor here, there's actually a bolt. You can remove that bolt and you can put a coolant temp sensor of your choice that'll either match up with your gauges, or if you've got an aftermarket gauge, that one can go in there as well. It is obviously earthed when it goes in here because it is designed for a single wire gauge sensor. So if you've got a sensor with two wires, you can just bung the other one around and just earth it on this sort of area where you're going to fit it here. Okay, if you've got a single wire one, perfect. Put whatever terminal you require on there and go through there. Okay. So we've also lengthened your oxygen sensor plugs. So these are obviously massively long. Obviously, as you said, you've moved the location of the lambda sensors a bit further back there. So that's all done for you. You've got your MAF sensor plug over here. So just excuse our ghetto radiator setup being held up by trusty Russell Hobbs toaster. All right. So on this side, everything is here. What we normally advise people to do is you can use these bolt holes over here, put some P-clamps up, and you can hold the harness on there like that, keep it a bit away from it. So again, everything is labeled, so it should be relatively straightforward to put all on. You've got a fixing point there if you want to mount it over there, and you can tie those all down there. Got the cam on the front, so that'll obviously mount here on its fitting. Then you're going to run everything down, and then there's a little hole sort of right here. So you see this, your AC would be a little hole down there, so everything runs through, and you've got your crank sensor down here. Now this is an LS motor, so this is the pointy out frontwards oil filter housing, but you've got plenty of length on this oil, so it can go on your oil filter housing, sort of bolts on the back here and sort of comes out here, so that's absolutely fine. And again, you'll see extra long lambda cable for your location. All right. So on the fueling side, you probably saw a lot of this out. I've been watching your YouTube videos. So deadhead system. So if you want, you can do something similar to basically what I do here on my engine stand setup. This is actually a Polo fuel filter with built-in regulator. Now, the only thing to remember on these is written over here is actually what they are. So I think they come in like a 3-bar, 4-bar, and a 6-bar. So I use a 4-bar over here. You can use a 3. The pressure should be about 3.5 bar. So that also opens up the BMW filters with built-in regulators. So those you can use there. These you can make nice and simple because you can actually just put them right close to the tank and you don't have to worry about, you know, having a long return, etc. It just all goes there and you have one pipe coming to the front going into here. You can actually cut this off, which will leave you with a fitting there, or you can go the route if you want of obviously changing all of these over. Just remember you've got a metal pipe that runs down the back that joins the two fuel rails together. So if you're going to do that, you need to sort of split it off into two and take one to that side and one to that side. These things on the corner of each fuel rail, these are fuel pulsation dampers. So they're not fuel regulators, although they have screws in them. Please don't screw them. You're not going to achieve anything other than breaking them. All right, so that's that. And you'll see on your engine, you've got 3 grounding points on this side, 2 big ones, 1 small one. The harness grounds on the M6 nuts, and same on that side over there. So you've got 2 grounds on here because one is for the coils and one is for the actual harness engine side. So you'll see that's a much thicker one than the coil ones over there. You've got your sub harness coming out here that goes underneath. So that goes off to your starter motor. So again, it's labeled as sub, both sides. So you shouldn't get it, should be relatively straightforward. That goes underneath to your knock sensors and to your starter motor. And then you should have your main thick power cable that comes out the back that actually bolts to your starter motor from there. All right. So coming over to this side, just excuse the bracket. This is a bracket from a GS430 third generation. This actually deletes the power steering pump and still lets you run everything else. So if you want to throw an AC or, you know, all of that type of jazz, you can still do it without having to sort of make a whole mission. If you're interested, I can give you all the part numbers for these, and then you can go from there. So alternator, very simple. You've just got your main power that bolts on there. You've got your plug that comes off the harness. It is labeled alternator, so you should find it no problem at all. All right, so that's pretty much that on the engine side. So it should be relatively straightforward to fit on there. So coming down here, obviously you've got your section that'll go inside the car. That'll then obviously plug into the ECU. Then you've got this little section that's on its own that goes off to your fuse box. So this is your fuse box, 4 relays, a couple of fuses. Your welcome pack will detail what all the fuses do, what all the relays do. This little LED is actually a check engine light. We put it in the box because some people are just keen to get it started as quickly as possible without wiring in all the gauges that we actually give you on this plug over here. So again, because you can get it started up relatively quickly, it's just 4 wires, 2 permanents, ignition, start signal, and then if you want, there's your fuel pump supply, which we're actually running off to a plug over there. So that's these wires that are currently unpinned from there, just so we can get it started on the stand. So these red and blue, that's your 2 permanent 12 volts. The gray, that's your 12 volt from your fuel pump. That is relayed in here, so you're quite happy to run a wire from here over to your fuel pump. If you're going to run some sort of beefy fuel pump, then you can just use this obviously to control a relay on the other side. Everything on the fuel pump is controlled via the ECU. I do have a video on exactly how all the systems work. The SC is the same as the LS, so it just has a normal relay that clicks the fuel pump on. The only thing is it doesn't prime, so don't freak out if you get everything fired up and you don't hear your fuel pump priming. That is completely normal. The fuel pump will only run when it either gets a starter signal, which it'll give it when you crank it, or the crank signal is coming from the crank sensor, so it checks engine RPM. Okay, so coming over to your plug over here. So this is the one that you're obviously going to put the bits and bobs in your car. Pre-done, we've got your OBD2 plug over here. So you can plug in your OBD2 machine, read all your codes, all the live data, which is effectively what we're going to do. And we're actually going to show you all of that on here. We're going to be carrying out loads of tests like VVT-i solenoids, etc. All right, then on the major stuff here, you've got these 2 wires, which would be your red and blue, permanent 12 volt supply. Just take straight to a battery. You can fuse it nice and big, sort of like 40, 60 amps or whatever you want basically. You've got your red and your black, which is your ignition. So this needs a 12 volts ignition source. In between that, you've got your fuel pump, which I've already been through. Then you've got your black with a yellow, that's your starter signal. Again, that needs a 12 volt supply, and you'll see actually when I power it all up and I go to start it, you'll see I just touched this on the power supply here. Then coming down here, you've got your yellow with your red. Now that's your check engine light. So you can see I've connected it up here. We've just got a little dash over there so we can just see all the tacho and everything working. And we'll have check engine light in the corner there. You've got your yellow here, solid yellow, that's your engine RPM. So the system will give out a 4-cylinder signal. I'm guessing the Mazda had a it's got a 4-cylinder in, so this may be a straight plug-in for you. Your pink with your blue, which is over here, that's your alternator light, so that gives out a ground, so you can either take it to an LED. Most standard vehicles use the same signals. Obviously Mazda's Japanese, so I'm pretty sure it does. So you can take that straight to your dash and that will work. And then you've got your yellow with a green tracer. Now that goes to that little temp wire, which I spoke about earlier on the front there, so you can take it to your own temp gauge. Then you've got your yellow with a black tracer. That's your oil light. So again, that's going to give a ground out from your oil switch, and you can use that to run an oil light on your dash. And this white with a blue that you can see I've looped in here, that's a clutch switch. So you can run it if you want. If you have a clutch switch, you can take one side of the clutch switch to ground and the other side to here. and that'll effectively stop your car from starting unless you put the clutch in. Don't have a clutch switch, not a problem. Just connect this to ground anywhere. It's nothing major, it's just the ground for the starter relay. So any ground inside the car, wherever you mount the fuse box, no problem at all. We just like to include it because people have found it useful in the past. All your pedal wires are in here. So you can see we've made about a 2 meter long harness that runs up here. And it goes up to your pedal. We've got a similar pedal to you, so we're using ours to test it out. So we'll go through all of that. Okay, so that's your plug there. Obviously it will be in the welcome pack, but sometimes, again, people find it easy just to watch the videos. So that's all that you've got there. Everything inside here, you've got your lid that'll just pop onto there. You've got your mounting brackets to obviously mount it inside the vehicle, and it can mount completely flush. All the wiring underneath is actually tucked up in, so no problem there at all. Alright, so we've got our intelligent Toyota tester hooked up to it. So we're going to use this to carry out some tests when we start it up. And basically what we're going to do is I'm going to turn the ignition on in a minute, and then we're going to run through some quick tests that we can see. So things like that the actual drive-by-wire pedal is working. Alright, and then what we'll do is we'll then go to fire it up. You'll see all the live data on the machine. We'll then actually go in and we're going to test oil control valves, both sides for the VVT-i. Okay. While I've got the ignition on only, we'll actually test the fuel pump. So you should be able to hear it actually going away in the makeshift fuel tank, if you will. Okay, so we'll go through those and test all those up. You'll actually see, I'll show you on this thingy that the voltage is going up, so you can see that the actual alternator is charging. Again, I've already tested all of this. It's just a case of going through the motions with you now of the video. When we start it up, you'll see this little valve at the back here. This is your ACIS, Acoustic Control Induction System. There's 8 little valves all the way through here, okay? In this position, they are open, and you've effectively got half the intake length. When this closes down, which it does after a few seconds of starting up, these 8 valves then close, and you've got the entire runner length. So it comes all the way from here, all the way down here into the cylinder there, okay? So we'll again make sure that works. Really quick and easy test. Here's your little plug over here. You've actually got a little vacuum solenoid underneath the intake. You can then just supply 12 volts and ground to this one over here, and then that'll actually tell you whether or not your solenoid is working. If it's not working, just pop off the intake. It's not as difficult as everybody makes out. There's literally 10 bolts. You've got 4 in each corner that are nuts, and then in the middle 1, 2, and 3 are just bolts. 12 mil on a socket, 3/4 inch wrench, boop, and the whole intake will just pop off. Just move the harness over to the side, unplug the injectors. You can leave the cam sensor here plugged in, and the whole intake will come off really, really easily. Okay. There is one thing that I do want to mention to you with the SC. Sorry, this is actually an LS430 thingy box, but this is actually an LS430 math. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and put the part number on the bottom of the screen. Hopefully I can. You need the SC430 math. There is a difference between the SC430 math and the LS. Okay, so just make sure you get that correct. Again, I'm going to try and put the part number at the bottom of the screen. I'll try and keep it up for as long as I can so you can pause and note that down. Okay, so hopefully that goes through the majority of things. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the ignition on. So again, all we're basically doing is I'm just supplying power. So I'll do that. I need 2 hands for that. Okay. Right, so now you see everything comes alive. Check engine light comes on. That indicates everything is going fine. Oh, and just out of interest, the whole system gets its earths from the back of the engine. Okay, so there's no earths in here that you have to put in. It literally all works from the back of the engine. Okay, one single earthing point for everything in the entire harness. Okay, so now that we've got the system up and running and live, we'll quickly go over to our data list here. Okay, and there you can see there we've got 48 degrees. Like I said, I already had the engine running, intake temperature, throttle position, idle signal on because obviously we haven't got anything pressed. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, and what you will notice is, if I keep quiet for a second, silence. There's nothing humming from the drive-by-wire throttle at all. And what I'm going to do is, I don't know if you're going to hear this, but I'm going to keep quiet. As soon as I press the pedal, you're going to start hearing the throttle humming. Okay, so again, don't be alarmed. If you switch on the ignition, you don't hear the throttle humming, not a problem. It'll only do so the second you actually engage the pedal. Okay, and it works there. So just to show you, we've got the throttle position on there currently at 11%. Hold it sort of halfway down, roughly. See how good I am? No, 74% overshot there. Okay, you also see the idle signal goes off clearly because you've got the pedal pressed down. All right, so now we're going to go into active tests over here. So there's some tests I'm going to carry out now that don't require the engine running itself. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the fuel pump. And what I'm going to do is, as soon as I press this arrow, it's going to turn the fuel pump on. So I'm going to go over to the fuse box and you're going to hear the relay click. There you go. You should be able to hear. Hopefully you do. All right, so we're happy with that. So we know that the system is controlling the fuel pump as it should. Okay, so we're going to go through here. Okay, so this is where we're going to test the VVT-i control bank 1 and bank 2. So that's what that's going to do effectively is going to throw the cams way out. So you can actually hear the engine go really, really lumpy when it does that. Okay, so that's all there. So these are all the tests that you can do if you have sort of a diagnostic machine, etc. Okay, so I think the next thing we're going to have to do now is we're going to fire it up. All right, so you're going to see me obviously touch this black with the yellow wire on the 12 volts. That's going to fire it up. Okay. Once I fire it up, so again, this is in case you don't hear me. I've watched a couple other videos. You can sort of hear my voice, but I'm not guaranteeing that you're going to hear everything. So quick thing, we're obviously going to check the ACIS valve that it goes down. So we know that that's working. We'll give it a quick rev so we can actually see that the throttle is working when the engine is running. All right. The sheer fact that it actually starts up will indicate that the immobilizer is removed because, well, we haven't got anything here. There's nothing, no keys or anything there. We'll notice that the check engine light will go out. That'll indicate no codes. Okay, and it'll go out there. And then we'll actually pick up some RPM on our dash there just to show that that's working. So we know the check engine light's working. We know that's working. And you'll see the actual voltage. I don't know if you can, what's going to be the best angle there. But anyway, I'll try and get the voltage on there just to show you that it has actually climbed up. So you can see that the alternator is actually charging. Okay. And then what I'm also going to do, nearly forgot, okay, is I've only loosely put on all of these injectors. So what I'm going to do is pull them off one by one so you can actually hear that every single cylinder is actually firing. Okay. So that's pretty much what I'm going to do as part of the test. So if you don't hear what I'm saying, at least you know what's going on. Okay. So I suppose let's get this done. All right, 1, 2, 3, off we go. Okay, there you go. So that's gone off there. Okay, so we know the throttle works. So now we'll go test the VVT-i. And we'll do bank 1 first. Voltage has gone up. We've got RPM on our dash. Okay, so now I'm going to go through each injector so you can see it's firing. neighbors kill me. Right, okay, so we saw the ACIS work as it should, no problem at all. We got 0 trouble codes, no problem at all. We tested both VVT-i solenoids. You could hear the engine changes note dramatically. You can obviously read in the bottom, it's moving it way out of sync, so it sounds like a lumpy American V8. I've gone through each and every cylinder, so we know that we're happy there and that every cylinder is firing. We've revved it, so we know that everything is obviously okay with the accelerator pedal, and yours is exactly the same, so again, you should have 0 issues there at all. Okay, we know the starter signal works, obviously because it fired up. And obviously we can see that the alternator is actually charging over there as well. All right, so that's obviously, you know, as far as we can test it. I'm happy, it seems absolutely fine. Everything seems to be working 100%. Again, hopefully this will make your life a little bit easier. The fact that obviously your firewall is right there, so hopefully your grommet will be somewhere about here and it'll give it a nice sort of uniform shape rather than sort of bending like I think we originally discussed over there. Okay. So again, just to recap from your side, make sure your earths are on your block, get some emery cloth, give these a good clean. If they've got any sort of aluminium rust, dirt, oil, or whatever, make sure you've got a really decent earth, okay? Your alternator's got your main power charging cable there. That requires, or in the standard vehicle, it's 120 amp fuse. Feel free to use that, or 100 amp, or whatever you feel is necessary in your case, depending on what you've got, bearing in mind these are luxury vehicles. So things like electric seats, heated seats, windows, blah, 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 etc., etc. Okay. Hopefully these lambda sensors are going to be long enough for you there. Okay. You need to put a decent earth onto the block. So I don't know if you're going to really see it here, but so we've got a bolt to the block there. There's plenty of places in here. Standard position is actually on the mounts. So you've got your 4 bolts for your mounts on there. So you can use that. What we normally do, now yours is obviously a left-hand drive, so obviously the harness is coming out on the right bank over here. You've got your 2 bigger holes over here on each cylinder head. You don't need to go mental, just take 1 earth from here to your firewall, and that should be absolutely good enough. That's exactly what Toyota did. Shouldn't have any issues there at all. Okay, and finally, please remember the math. You do need the specific math. If you get the wrong one, you're going to have a bad time. But yeah, so hopefully that's everything done for you now. I've already sent you the photos, but I'll put all the photos again at the end of the video for you, so you can see it all again. But next up is getting this all in a box and on its way to you. And hopefully I'll see it all on your YouTube videos when it's all up and running. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. If you have any questions or things that I've gone through here that you may want to ask, please feel free to comment down at the bottom. We'll try and get through as many as we can. We do try and do videos to answer people's questions, so please feel free to get in touch with us. There's a whole bunch of videos on there where people have asked me questions and I've done bits and bobs. We'll try and keep those nice and short and sweet, not sort of 3-hour long videos. But that's it for this one. Again, hopefully this is no problem for you, Honza, to install, and hopefully it gives you years of good service. Thank you guys for watching. Cheers. Bye.